Three horrible booking decisions from WWE Survivor Series 2024. This show had a lot of newsworthy moments, whether it be Shinsuke Nakamura winning the U.S. Championship from LA Knight, or the main event, seeing the original Bloodline go over the new Bloodline, right? There's a lot good, but there's a lot of bad, and we're going to discuss it. Look, I thought this was one of WWE's strongest PLEs of the year. I thought that they did a lot of good things, but I also thought they did a lot of bad, and that's what we're going to be talking about here. Now, there was only a handful of matches, 5. They had the early start time. I was appreciative of. They got off the air about 10 o'clock Eastern. I can appreciate that. And they kept it going. I think the pace of the show was some of the best that WWE has done in recent times, especially with no long Roman Reigns entrance. It's the Women's War Games match. It was the opening contest. It was Team Bianca, if you will, but it was Bianca, Naomi, Rhea Ripley, and Io Sky going up against Tiffany Stratton, Women's Champion Nia Jax, Raquel Rodriguez, Women's World Champion Liv Morgan, and another. So Candice LeRae, I could not remember her name to save my life. Anyway, so that was your opening contest. These girls worked hard, but it just sucked. The match just sucked in general. Here's where I thought they went wrong. Here's what I had an issue with. Was the match a letdown? Yes. Was it a match that did not need the War Games concept? Yes. However, what I had an issue with was the fact that WWE opted to have Rhea Ripley pin the Women's World Champion Liv Morgan in this match. She had the riptide off the top rope, sending her through a table. Now, I understand that a lot of people say, well, they have a built-in storyline. They have a backstory because Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, they have a lot of backstory, a lot of history. Their feud has gone on for months. You needed to set up that third match. No, you didn't. First of all, Liv Morgan is supposed to defend the Women's World Championship against Io Sky, first of all, before she ever gets to Rhea Ripley, if she does get to Rhea Ripley for the Women's World Championship on the line. You already have it built in. Rhea and Liv have a ton of history that you could easily just build off of and book a third match. Also, you have the fact that Rhea Ripley actually beat Liv Morgan via DQ due to outside interference at Bad Blood due to Raquel Rodriguez's interference, and therefore she is already guaranteed a championship match down the line. You could also have her win the Women's Royal Rumble match should you want to do that match at WrestleMania. So there are 3 different reasons as to why I felt like Liv Morgan should not have ate the fall. If you want a 4th, here's one. I am a strong believer in the fact that you do not beat your champions. Under any circumstances, you protect the championships. You protect the champions, because when you beat champions, you tell the audience that the titles don't mean as much as you think. And at the end of the day, they are not props, even if Vince Russo thinks otherwise. You want to protect the championships because that's what everyone is fighting towards or going after at the end of the day. That is something that everyone holds in a high regard, and therefore you should not have Liv Morgan eat the pinfall, especially since you have to still keep some credibility with her and Io Sky, which people have forgotten about. As well as you want to save that payoff because Rhea just pinned Liv, right? Outside of the championship, she kind of got her revenge. Number 2, and people are going to disagree with me on this, but it is Shinsuke Nakamura winning the United States Championship from LA Knight. Look, did LA Knight have an exceptional, an amazing, an outstanding run as a U.S. champion? No. Did it seem like lackluster and a step backwards for him? Yes. Here's where I had the issue with. I do not have the issue with ending LA Knight's reign as U.S. champion. Not every champion needs to have a 6-month to a year reign. Not advocating for that. What I am saying is this. I don't think Shinsuke Nakamura was the right guy to do so, and I'll tell you why. Outside of house shows and international events, Shinsuke Nakamura for the last, 6 to 8 months has only won one television match And that was the night before Survivor Series on SmackDown to further build him up with LA Knight. I feel like if you were going to have LA Knight put someone over, if you were going to have LA Knight lose the United States Championship, then therefore you should do so for someone that they can build up, a young up and coming talent. A Carmelo Hayes would have been perfect, and Andrade would have been someone, but you opted not to do so. Instead, you gave it to Shinsuke Nakamura, who has not been a top tier star since his NXT days nearly, I don't know, 8 years ago, right? You have someone in Shinsuke Nakamura that you had not done anything with up until recently. Do I like the new gimmick? Yes. Do I like the fact that they're pushing him? Yes. But this is a far cry from Shinsuke Nakamura, in which signed from New Japan to WWE. He was an entrance in NXT almost a decade ago. He is not what he once was, nor will he ever be that guy, right? And so now we've essentially stripped everything that made Nakamura special, and that was charisma. This character doesn't have charisma. This character is like I don't know, a samurai, I guess. I don't know what the gimmick is supposed to be. They haven't really explained it, at least in my opinion. I hope they can do that, especially now that they've made him the United States champion. But at the end of the day, I think it was a wasted opportunity. A guy that has not been what he once was, who is only getting older, who's really not that over. He was introduced as a babyface. He was a babyface for the longest time, and then he kind of got exposed, and then they turned him heel, and he really hasn't done anything of note in years. So, not a huge fan of this booking decision. I think they wasted an opportunity there, and we'll see where they go from here. Number one, obviously, it was the men's War Games match. So it was Roman Reigns, Jimmy Uso, Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, CM Punk going over the New Bloodline. It was Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, Tonga Loa, and Bronson Reed. Now, obviously, we know now that 2 injuries were suffered in this match. Jimmy Uso has a broken toe. Bronson Reed has at least an ankle injury, if not to both, due to the dives in which they did off the top of the cages in this match. We know that Roman Reigns was the one that pinned Solo Sikoa, and that's what I had an issue with. So at the end of the match, you had all the baby faces. They all hit their finisher. It was a finisher spam to protect Solo as strongly as possible. It was at the end of the day, though, Roman Reigns who pinned Solo Sikoa. Why do I have an issue with this finish? Well, we are still building, and they told you directly after the match, well, Roman Reigns still has to get the Ala Fala, right? He still has to get the necklace. He still has to claim back the head of the table. And it's like, but you just pinned Solo Sikoa. Like, so, first of all, Solo Sikoa has been just see-through, right? In terms of like not as a top guy. No one sees him as a top guy outside of WWE management. Everyone's like, it's Jacob Fatu. But you have to finish off the story between Solo and Roman Reigns because Roman has to get back the head of the table. Personally, I think Jacob Fatu should turn on Solo after he loses to Reigns, and then you build up that new head of the table versus the old head of the table between Roman and fake Jacob Fatu at like a WrestleMania or something, but I digress. What is the point of Reigns going after Fatu again? Just to claim head of the table? I thought if you lose to someone who's challenging for the head of the table, then therefore you lose the head of the table moniker, the build, the leadership, whatever you want to call it, right? The stature, the role. So they lost, and it's like, now what? Right now, we're just supposed to be like, well, so they got to rebuild Solo again after he lost to Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam, and they got to rebuild him, and they got to make it believable that he can beat Roman Reigns, and it's like no one believes in it. And so now we're going on yet again with another match between Roman and Solo, and it's like, can we just get to Roman versus Jacob Fatu and move this thing along?